Okay, happy Monday. Welcome to Community Connect. We're so excited that you're here. Tonight, throw the fog machines on, put the spotlight out. I love this woman, and I've been so excited. We've just been talking a lot in Messenger about different things we're learning, and I learn so much from her. She manages a lot, okay? Homeschooling 4 kids. Her mom is on the call, who's a senior goal, and she's nodding her head. She's like, yes, she manages a lot. Homeschooling, classical conversations, and I believe that actually right before this call, she was on like a tutoring call. Like she's probably the leader of all the tutors in classical conversations worldwide. Like that would not surprise me. She is very good with her time and she's very disciplined. It's something I really admire about her, just her discipline and commitment to anything that she believes in. And so I just love that about her so much. We're so grateful for her skill set and her leadership on our team. And so I'm excited to hear from Brittany tonight. Emerald Brand Ambassador, Brittany Raup.
That was the most ridiculous introduction ever, but thank you. It was so over the top, but I
And
appreciate you,
fun.
Alina, so much. I'm really just a very normal person, you guys. But I have been doing this for 7 years, which is crazy, like the way that time flies. And I absolutely love working my business, growing my team, loving on my customers, loving my team. Like it really is a privilege what we get to do. And it is worth putting the time and the effort into. I'm so grateful for my upline, for Megan and Cheryl and Alita and Amber and my downline and my sidelines. Like we really have such a beautiful and amazing thing. So what we're going to talk about tonight is consistency. And if you're like, oh, I'm bored already, trust me, it's going to be good. And hopefully you're going to leave with a little inspiration, maybe a little tough love as well. Yeah. Okay. So my main tip these past 7 years. Oh, and if somebody could make me the host so that I could share a picture when the time comes, that would be great. My main tip, if someone asks me, getting to Emerald and staying at Emerald for the past several years, maintaining my team, like, what's your main tip, right? We get asked that question. It has always been the same, and it's don't start and stop. Do not start and stop. And we see it so much, right, around us, people starting things and quitting before they really get going. And that is my main tip to you guys is don't start and stop. Okay, we're going to talk about consistency. This has always been a favorite topic of mine. But in the past year, it's even taken more of a front row seat for me. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But an object in motion tends to stay in motion, right? Like Alita said, I'm a homeschool mom, so I might throw some science at you, but that is a law. Like that is true of the universe. Things that are in motion tend to stay in motion. And so being consistent in your sharing and in your business, it helps you keep that momentum to move forward. It is really difficult. Like you're just making it hard on yourself if you're constantly restarting. If there's a time when you do have to restart, do it. It's still worth it. But if you can keep in motion, even if it's a little bit of motion, it really does keep you moving forward. So we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about the importance of consistency, what consistency actually looks like, because you might have a misconception of what it looks like to be consistent. It's maybe different than what you think. And I'm also going to give you some practical tips for what consistency can look like in your day, in your week, in your business. Okay, so let's dive in and first talk about the importance of consistency. So consistency is what gets you over that hump of working your business and not really making any money to actually having the time freedom and getting paid an incredible rate for the hours that you work. And if you guys have looked at those income charts, right, you know that at Diamond making $20,000 a month, I mean, if you break it down, and I have done the math on this, at Diamond income, right? If you're working 3 or 4 hours a day, and when I talk to Diamonds, that's pretty much what they say. Like I work 3 or 4 hours a day for 20 days out of the month, right? With days off and weekends and whatever, you're making about $250 an hour. Okay. That's like lawyer money, right? That's like an insanely high hourly rate. And that's the dream, right? When you start your business, you think about like, oh, wow, that would be amazing And it's not just the income, but also the impact that you can make, the time freedom, the financial freedom. But you do not get there without consistent action, right? Nobody builds to a diamond, an emerald, a ruby, like whatever your big plexus goal is, like dream, like that would change everything for me. No one gets there by accident. It's always through consistent action. And consistency is what gets you over that hump from that side hustle income to that life-changing income, right? So at the beginning of the year, Shannon and I actually did a call on this. We talked about doing a calendar audit. Maybe you guys were on, and we talked about just reflecting and, looking back on the past year and setting intentions for the year ahead. And I really wanted to sit down and reflect on what's important and what matters, right? Because maybe like the financial piece, maybe it doesn't feel like it's important, or maybe it doesn't matter to you. But I was like, okay, does my business matter? Does what I'm doing matter? And I had this quote that I heard. Actually, my daughter was watching, she watches these shows on YouTube called Torchlighters, and they're about like Christian missionaries and all these like cool stories. And there's this guy, William Carey, who was a missionary to India, and he spent 41 years in India without a break, like translating and working with the people and preaching all these things, like 41 years in India. Like, can you even imagine? And this is the quote that was like ringing in my head. He said, "I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid at succeeding at things that don't matter." I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of succeeding at things that don't matter. And I just like heard it in passing, and it really like stuck out to me like, wow, I really want to make sure that what I want to be successful in really matters, right? Like really matters. And so I reflected on my business, like all this effort, this work that I'm doing with Plexus, does it matter? And the conclusion that I came to is it really does. It really, really matters, because what you achieve by building your business, by growing your team, what you achieve with Plexus frees you up to do the things that really matter, right? Like maybe Plexus isn't like, you want to be the Plexus goddess, but it frees you up. It gives you the flexibility, it gives you the income to do the things that you are passionate about. So for me, my Plexus income allows me to homeschool my 4 kids. Like that is my why. That was like my dream. I never would have been able to do that had I not built my business, right? So it allows me to do that. We want to use part of our Plexus income to sponsor adoptions, right? Like that matters. Like giving children a home, that matters. And, so whatever your why is, whatever is pressing you in, that when you think about consistency, you need to realize it's important. Like this work actually matters. And that's one piece of it. And the second piece is what we do matters because it changes people's lives, right? When you start to hear stories of, I didn't have to take fertility medication, and I'm not in the bathroom all the time, and my inflammation is down so that I can walk without pain, like it really matters to people. And as you're building a team, every ID number that you see in your virtual office is attached to a soul, right? Like there is a soul connected to that ID number that you get to serve and to love. This is a relationship business, and nothing matters more than relationships and people, right? So I want you to just feel compelled that your work really, really matters. It's not just the income, it's the lives that are being changed. It's what Plexus can free you up to do. Like that income, it's not just cash in your bank. Like put it to work, find something inspiring that you want to grow or do or change, and you can use it to do that. Okay. So it matters. And in order to achieve those goals, we have to be consistent and treat this business like it really matters. Okay. It's important. Okay, let's talk about what consistency looks like. So it's important. I want to share a graphic, and hopefully I can do that here. Okay. I love this little visual. Can you guys see my screen? Hopefully you can. Okay. So what you think consistency looks like, right? Is just like crushing it every day. I am just showing up every single day, 100%, never have a bad day, never have a day off. No, that is not what consistency looks like. What it looks like is the second picture, right? Some days are, I'm doing great, other days not so much. if you guys follow me on social media, you may have seen that my kids were like super duper sick this past 10 days. Like consistency did not look like 100% every day, but I still showed up in some capacity each day. So if you need to screenshot this or something, this is really, really important. Have a healthy and just realistic understanding of what consistency looks like. And it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. It doesn't mean that you're perfect every day. It means that you're clear on what you need to do to move the needle forward and you take action on those things. Okay, so clarity is really important. And I think it's helpful to think of consistency in terms of your week instead of just a day. All right, this has helped me a lot to think about the week because the ebb and flow of your week will look very different from mine, right? Very different from Cheryl's or Rachel's or Shannon's. Like everybody's week ebbs and flows. I tutor on Tuesdays. I'm not doing a ton of plexus work, right? I will do some later when I get home, but it looks different than other days of the week. And you're going to have certain days that you have more time to give. But map out your week. When are you working your business? What are you doing each day? What are your priorities? And one thing I did at the beginning of this year, and I want to thank Shannon, who's on here, for the inspiration, is to map out my week. And I have it like literally hanging right here each day of the week and what I want to do in my business on those days. This was so helpful. I mean, you think 7 years in that I would just like sit down and know what to do. But do you ever have those days where you're like, okay, I'm going to work my business, and you sit down and you're like, what do I do? Like your brain just stops and you just kind of don't know where to start, or you're just not clear, right? So I sat down in a quiet moment and mapped out my week, right? And it's going to look different from everybody else's, but on Monday, what are the things I want to do in my business? On Tuesday, what are the things? On Wednesday. So when I sit down, I literally can just turn and be like, oh yeah, and get to work and get to doing the things. That has been super helpful. So if you have to get a piece of paper or get a Word doc going or a spreadsheet, whatever it is, that has been so, so helpful for me to be able to be consistent because it's already mapped out. So thank you, Shannon, for that inspiration. She's amazing. She's our little organization queen. I love her. Yeah, so consistency looks like a clear plan of action with effort on those action items each day so that when you've set aside time to do it, and it doesn't have to be a big chunk of time, guys. I'm gonna give you a plan for a very small chunk of time. But when you set aside that time, you can just sit down and do it and go and be consistent. And you can and should take days off, right? Like we don't want to be a slave to working our business. I absolutely take days off. For me, I rest on Sundays, but I want to be consistent because, like we said, our work really, really matters. And in order to move it forward, we've got to be doing the things, right? We've got to be showing up. So I want to give you some practical tips too. But before that, there was one other picture I wanted to show you. I love little visuals. They're so helpful. Okay, let me show you this one too. Okay, this is important. Consistency versus intensity, right? Sometimes we want to just turn up the intensity, right? We're like, I'm stalling out or my points are going down. I'm just going to turn up the intensity. I'm just going to go like all in. And what happens is we're like fireball on week 1 and then like fizzle on week 2 and then like dead on week 3, right? Like, and it just dies. How many of you guys have experienced that cycle? We just turn up the intensity. What is way more powerful is when you have that steady flame of consistency, just like a low burn, right? Like it's just burning in the background. You're showing up, you're doing the things, you're having conversations, you're taking care of your people. That's that slow burn of consistency. And what happens is when you have consistency, you can turn up the intensity for short bursts, right? When you're feeling fired up, when you're going for a big thing, when you're closing in on the rank, right? There are absolutely times to turn up the heat and put that burner on high and work with higher intensity. But what will happen is you will get better results from the increased intensity when you have that slow burn of consistency already working. If you haven't been consistent and you try to turn up the intensity, you normally don't get the results you want, right? You're like, well, it didn't work. Well, that's because you haven't been having the conversations or doing the things to keep that consistency going. So that's another graphic that I think is really helpful. Good reminder. Don't just turn up intensity. Make sure you've got the foundation of consistency laid first. Okay, so let's talk practical tips in these last couple of minutes that we have. I have some new people that are working on growing their business, and that has been super exciting because it made me kind of go back to when I first started. I kind of tried to go back 7 years, like what was I doing when I first got started that got me off the ground, got me growing and ranking up because I didn't have a lot of time when I first started. I was working in healthcare. I had 3 kids, and the youngest was 4 months old when I clicked join and started Plexus, and I knew I wanted to get my products paid for. So I probably had like 30 to 60 minutes per day to grow my business. And that honestly got me to that Ruby level. And I know a lot of you are like, yes, I would love to be Ruby. Like that's a big goal of mine. So I reflected back on what did I do? A few of us put our heads together, Victoria, Shannon, Alicia, like we were talking about like, what are the essential things that for someone new or someone who only has a little chunk of time per day, what do they need to do to show up with consistency and really get their business off the ground? What activities? And so Shannon actually made this. She's like the star of the show today. All of the things. I'm going to share this graphic with you too. And this is what we came up with. Can you guys see that 30 to 60 minutes of IPA? Okay, so this might be helpful for you guys to take a screenshot of, or I can drop it in our chat. But this is what we came down to. Like, if I only have 30 to 60 minutes, what are the things that I can sit down, set a timer, and go and do to grow my business? And these are the essentials. Of course, you can always do more than these things, but these are the essentials. 5 to 10 minutes of personal growth, 5 to 10 minutes of customer care, because guys, if you have customers, you need to be taking care of them. A huge part of growing is retaining your team, right? Retaining your team. And if you're not loving on your customers that you have, you don't really deserve to bring in new ones, right? I know that might be hard to hear, but you have to be taking care of your current customers if you want more to come in, right? Like this is retention and relationships and all those things. Like if we want to love and serve people, we have to be taking care of them. So customer care, 5 to 10 minutes of new reach outs, that's starting new conversations, right? Talking to new people about Plexus that you haven't talked to before. 5 to 10 minutes of follow-up, and then spending some time on your social media, either adding value or connecting or posting about Plexus. These are the essential things. Timers are really, really helpful because it takes away the hesitation, right? I'm doing 5 minutes of customer care. Boom, start the timer. I'm not allowing myself to get distracted for those 5 minutes. And I know it's only 5 minutes and I can do it, right? Or it's only 10 minutes and I can do it. Okay, new reach outs, 5 to 10 minutes. I'm setting a timer. Boom, I'm doing it. I'm not gonna go watch a reel. I'm not gonna scroll. I'm not gonna go in my team chat and like do the fluffy things until I get these things done, right? These are the essential things. It doesn't have to take all day. And I'm here to tell you, I literally grew my business with 30 minutes of intentional time in the evening after my kids were in bed, but it was consistent and it was clear. Okay. So if you're lacking clarity or you feel stuck or like you're not growing, go to these things. Am I doing these essential things? It may be that you're spending too much time on other things that are good things and helpful things, but they're not the essentials of growing your business. Okay. So this is the really simple 30 to 60 minutes of IPA. I can send that in our chat as well. Okay. And I love this analogy, and I've heard this before. When you're starting to make a new habit, just keep it doable. Just keep it simple. I heard the analogy of flossing your teeth. Like if you really want to start flossing, just commit to flossing one tooth. Now, that sounds ridiculous, right? Like, what, floss one tooth? Yes, but what do? You floss one tooth and you're like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm just going to floss all my teeth. I'm already here with the floss, right? And so you floss all your teeth. And it's almost like a mental game, just a trick of like, if I just start on doing the right thing the habit I want to establish, I will just naturally do more of that thing. So what you'll find is as you start setting timers and as you start doing your income producing activities, you'll just naturally do more. You might find yourself doing 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever because you've already started and you're already in the zone. Okay. So wrap your head around those habits, establish the habits, and watch it expand. But if you want to grow a solid business, you really want to commit to 30 to 60 minutes of income producing activities at least several days a week, right? Doesn't have to be every single day, But in order to grow, that's kind of it. If you can't commit to that, you're always going to have that side hustle income. And if that's what you want, that is totally fine. But how worth it is it to commit to an actual chunk of time daily to build something that's going to change your life, right? It is so worth it. And the last piece I'll say for practical tips is have accountability. For me and my team, we started a little chat for people that were willing to be held accountable. Like they said, yes, hold me accountable. Maybe you have a sideline sister. Maybe that's your upline for you. Maybe you could get a little group together and say, we want to be consistent. Hold me accountable. And what we do is every week I'm popping in there and I'm saying, how many days did you do your IPA, your income producing activity? How many social media posts did you do? And did you start at least one quality business conversation? Those are kind of the three things we're measuring. Okay. So maybe that will inspire you to seek out some accountability. We all need it. Okay, guys, we all struggle with consistency. Every single person. Alita, Cheryl, do you guys sometimes struggle to be consistent? Yes, I struggle to be consistent. Like there's no level you get to where it's not hard. And so accountability is key. And those are the three things we're checking in on. Just if you want to do this with somebody else, how many days did you work your business this week? How many social media posts did you do? Did you start one quality conversation about the business? Okay. Have an accountability partner, find somebody that you can be accountable to, because that is a critical piece. So wrapping up, action items and takeaways, I would encourage you to reflect. Have you been consistent? If you want to grow this thing, have you been consistent? Have you been giving your business the time and attention that it deserves to get it off the ground? And maybe you just needed the reminder that it's important. Like you have something to do with this. Like there is a big goal or dream on your heart that Plexus is going to be like the thing that turns the key for you to be able to do it, right? Maybe you just needed the reminder. Is it important? Have you been consistent? What are your non-negotiables for each day? Like before my head hits the pillow, I will have done this thing, right? Doesn't need to be 100 things, but what's that thing that you know it's going to drive you forward? What's your non-negotiable for the day? And then what do you have in place for accountability? Sideline sister, a chat with a few people from your team, your upline to check in on you, something to keep you going, to keep you checked in, to say, hey, have you been consistent? And a place where you can be honest and say, no, I needed the nudge. Thank you. I'm going to do this before my head hits the pillow. Okay. Because guys, consistency is everything and it is totally worth it. It's so important. So I will wrap that up. I did not look at the chat, but okay. Thank you guys for being on. I will share those couple of graphics just to be something that you can reference. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Be consistent. Set your non-negotiables. It is worth it.